like.
Yeah.
What time? What?
It's, well, I have.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the May 8th, 2013 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. Moving on to the first item on the agenda, Notice of Intent, Woodland Park Townhouse Condominium Trust, 90 to 160 Swan Street, concerning DEP file number 2060701. The project location is 90 to 124 Swan Street, and it's regarding replacement of an existing parking lot, pavement within the wetland buffer zone and bordering vegetated wetland. Is anyone here for this project? Yes, sir. If you could kindly approach the podium and identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. My name is Daniel O'Driscoll, O'Driscoll Land Surveying Company. We prepared the plans for RMX Northeast, Inc.
And if you could speak into the microphone and speak up a little bit, we're having a little
Sure.
trouble hearing you.
Okay. The project, can you wanted to see this color?
Yeah,
one
do
up?
we have a, an easel?
Okay, thanks.
And you can just pick that microphone up.
All right, thank you. So what I have here is a colored plan of the one you have. Woodland Park is a condominium complex located off of Swan Street. The area of activity under this notice of intent is going to be 2 parking lots here and here. Currently, the parking lots are very flat graded, and a lot of these, both of these buildings have garage unders in the rear. So many of these tenants are getting water in their garages during rainstorms. This side, more so than over here. So what we discovered when we did our field survey is that some of the pavement is pitching towards the garages. So we came up with a plan that would regrade the parking lot to pitch the water, the runoff, away from the garages and more down in the middle of the parking lot on each end. It amounts to about maybe about a 6-inch cut in some spots of lowering the existing pavement and almost no change in a lot of spots. We are also proposing to put in some river rock riprap at the end of each pavement area. Let me back that up by saying there's no on-site drainage in these areas. It's just the runoff flows off the pavement into the grass areas adjacent to the wetlands. So what we've done to kind of provide more of a filter is, propose some river rock riprap at the end of each paved area. Compounding the problem on the drainage here is when Swan Street was reconstructed a while back, all the runoff that comes from the high point past the cemetery actually flows into this site over the sidewalk, gets caught in by this curving and flows into here. So not much water is always getting to this catch basin. So the third phase, if you will, of this project, which is outside the buffer zone, is we're going to work with the city to redesign the sidewalk and curbing here so that the runoff that currently comes down Swan Street will go to this catch basin instead of coming into the property. So that's kind of the gist of it.
So there's a bunch of things here that I have questions about the plan, but just the last thing you said, you're proposing to do some regrading or repaving up by Swan Street?
Up here at the entrance, yes.
Have you shown that on your plan?
Not as of yet. All that activity falls outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
All right, you need to show everything you propose to do on your plan before you come to us. All right, we can't, it's hard for us to make, to say, yeah, okay, or no, not okay when we don't have a complete set of plans. Mm-hmm. This board traditionally will just say, give us your final plan. Sometimes we accept in, plans to be conditionally approved when it's just minor adjustments, but you're proposing some, significant grading work and repaving, and that we need to see that.
I realize that. We just haven't got that finalized yet to the point of submitting it to you. So what I was hoping tonight is to get the public hearing started, introduce you to the project, and then submit some plans, some revised plans to you that will show that regrading as well.
What's the, I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, considering that this is in near situs to Boston Road, what's the 100-year floodplain in this area? Do we know?
I'm not sure offhand.
I don't believe there's any 100-year floodplain in this area. This is just wetland.
All right. Okay. I didn't check it. Now, could this area be considered an isolated land subject to flooding?
I don't believe so. I think this wetland piece comes in here, actually goes under Woodland Drive through a culvert and connects up to this piece. It's quite a big piece of wetland here. I doubt it's isolated based on its size.
Okay, I'm just vaguely familiar with the area. I didn't happen to go out there and look at it, so I'm going to defer to the other members who have. I'm more concerned, I suppose, with what you presented and what I'm looking at as far as what was on the plan. Have you considered These areas that you're proposing to regrade, the parking areas, they're currently paved now?
Yes, they
Are
are.
you expanding the footprints of the repaving at all?
No, we're not.
Okay, so you're just repaving in place?
That's correct.
And the only thing, mainly what you're doing is you're changing the grades?
Slightly enough that they won't flow into the garages anymore.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, okay. All right, Commissioner Lovely?
I'm still trying to digest this a bit, but based on what you said, the wetland actually goes, I guess, at the end of the cul-de-sac, goes beyond the cul-de-sac. It's discontinuous on the figure, but it actually continues on both sides, so
That's
like in a
correct.
V-knot shape.
That's
Okay.
correct, sir.
My own opinion is I think this is somewhat premature. We don't even have a DEP file number yet, so I'm not sure what's gained by coming before us tonight versus having a little bit more clarity and certainty with what you're planning to do and showing it on a plan, and at that point, you'd probably have maybe even a DEP file number at that point.
Yeah,
There is
we have
there
a...
is a
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Okay. I, like the chairman, haven't had the chance to go out to see the site, so I mean, I'll also somewhat defer to my colleagues that have maybe gone out there and had a chance to see it, but it just wasn't clear to me as to whether or not the wetland went around the whole area on the other side of the cul-de-sac versus just two separate isolated wetlands. And you've answered that for me, so I'll defer to the others at this point. Thank you.
Commissioner Varnum?
Yeah, I visited the site today, and I also was part of the original filing when this complex was built. And I was pleased to see that the stream that runs through the property and winds around there seems to be flowing very well, and there doesn't seem to be any indication that there's been overflows in places where it wasn't expected. And I just thought the site had really maintained itself really well. It's been probably about 10 years now, at least, that it's been out there. I was a little concerned about the riprap areas. Do you happen to know if that's where the snow storage occurs? Because I did see quite a lot of sand on the western one there.
I believe so. I personally haven't been out when there was a lot of snow, but when I was evaluating the wetlands, especially in this area and in this area, there was definitely a lot of sand
Yeah.
deposited,
So
probably from snow melt.
I'm wondering even if just Riverstone is enough there, or whether there should be some kind of a swale, sort of a, with an outlet or something in order to keep the sand from blocking the sheet flow there. I'm not in a position to talk about designing it myself, but I think the river rock is probably a better situation than the riprap that's there.
That's correct.
But I'm just wondering if that's going to be a solution that's going to work permanently. The other issue up by the street, I had the same situation on my street, and the city did actually just put a berm at the top that's maybe 6 inches higher, and it's sort of like a speed bump, and it completely solved the problem. There was no, they dug down a little just to make sure that the pavement would stick in there, but there's been no problem at all since, and it's a very easy solution. I don't think it even needed any engineering, so that probably could be fairly easily fixed. I could see the damage to the garage doors, so I'm sure that this is a fix that's needed out there, because you certainly don't want flooding into people's garages.
Yeah.
And except for the fact that the plan doesn't seem to have a lot of grading on it, a lot of topography as far as before and after. It seems like a good plan except for the details.
Before I move on, are you Ken Parrish? Come on up, and welcome. And before we go, it's, for those of you who watch, we have two new members on the board, Matthew Gordon on my left over here, and Ken Parrish on my right. Welcome. Yeah, I meant to say that I'm going to parrot Commissioner Varnum's comments. This plan appeared to me to be an existing condition plan. What we'd like to see are your regrading, the existing conditions, and then your regrading lines superimposed on top of those. Okay.
Yeah.
That's especially where you're doing the work.
Well, we do have the proposed grade shown here, just we didn't get it done in time to get a copy to the commission.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is do our regrading here, get all those details together, and then submit a revised set of plans to the commission that will show all this work and grading, plus the grading in the proposed the proposed contours in the parking lot.
All right. Commissioner Lynch?
It says that you're going to be replacing and regrading the parking lots. What do you plan on doing with the material that you're going to be replacing? Are you going to reuse it, or is it going to be staged until it can be disposed of?
I don't know, but I can find out the answer for you.
And then same question, I guess, would be when you bring on the material to regrade, are you going to stockpile that until it's being used, or is it going to be dug up and then the material goes off site and then new material comes on in the same day? Just, questions like that. Because if you're going to stockpile anything, we definitely would want to see piles covered to make sure no dust or debris gets out. And also, too, are you going to be installing any new curbs or?
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Biedron? Commissioner Gordon? All right, Commissioner Parrish? All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up if anyone wants to offer their comments or concerns, and just to be aware that if you speak tonight, you'll still be allowed to speak at further hearings. It won't foreclose you from offering your comments or concerns. I tend to be all-inclusive. I'd rather hear comments based on final submittals as opposed to preliminary submittals. So if you would like to offer your comments or concerns regarding this project, kindly approach the podium and identify yourself for the record, and let us hear what your concerns are.
My name is Calvin Miller. I live at 38 Bigelow Street, so I can't really see a plan.
Right here. Miller?
Miller.
Yes.
But I border the wetlands. So my concern is when we have, like we had a few years ago, a couple of weeks of rain almost every day, the creek bed that's out there in the wetlands, and then it progresses out to Mr. Robinson's backyard and makes its way underneath Bigelow Street. Can't handle all that runoff. So at that point, the entire wetland begins to rise up. Then it starts encroaching into my backyard, into the neighbor's backyard. So the house that's right next to me that was built by special permit on the wetland, they've got a stone retaining wall, but they have pumps underneath their house that run 24/7. And so, again, when that water comes up, we all have issues. And I've lived there since '74. So before those condos were ever built, I didn't have those issues. But once they were built, that changed the watershed between all of the parking lots, between the buildings, the runoffs, and so forth, and turned it all in on that area that you're calling the wetland, and made matters worse. So I would be very concerned about the regrading, again, adding to when we have, 3 or 4 days of torrential downpours, raising everything up again. And then at that point, my backyard, I can go out there and slosh through it because, the water table rises. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Are there any catch basins in the lower elevations in either one of these parking lots?
There's one here.
Yeah, I noticed the one on the street.
Yeah, there's no other catch basins in the parking lots.
So in essence, the existing condition now is the water runs off the parking area one into the garage, and then ultimately it infiltrates into the ground, or it runs off into the existing wetland?
Yeah, the pitch on the parking lots is this way, so it runs off the end of the parking lot into the grass
Into the
area.
wetland area? Let me ask you something. Is there some way to design a retention area to handle an event? And do we need, under stormwater management, would that be a requirement under this because of the regrading?
Well, we haven't received comments from the city engineer right now, but since it's an existing parking lot and it's no increase in impervious area, the city engineer hasn't really looked for any reduction, significant reduction in stormwater flow. There's obviously the concern if it's coming off the parking lot at a faster rate, the impacts that might have on the wetlands, but it's not likely to increase flooding events or impact negatively flooding events over current conditions.
It seems to me, that we're not increasing any off-site runoff here. We haven't been provided with any calculations, but from your plan, it seems that the two areas of concern are already bordered by the wetland. Is there an opportunity to utilize popcorn pavement for the parking areas?
We talked about that a little bit with the property manager, and I'll ask again, but I think his concern with that was it doesn't survive the winter too well. And the plows kind of pick it up stone by stone, and personally, I don't know much about it. This is all I've been told from...
All right, from our experience from the projects that have utilized it, that doesn't seem to have been a concern. Whether it's a developing concern, I don't know. But what I can tell you, though, is one of the side benefits to it is you don't really need to plow in some circumstances because the snow melts a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it's, not akin to having a heated driveway, but the snow does melt a lot quicker. So a 1 or 2 or 3 inch event, the snow is going to be off the pavement in fairly short order without plowing.
Can you tell me the name of it again?
Well,
it's like an impervious pavement?
Yeah, it's pervious pavement, yeah. The Alpine Butcher?
Yes.
Yeah, Alpine Butcher on Chelmsford Street, right at the intersection with Route 3, has utilized it.
There's a couple commercial projects on Westford Street that have pervious asphalt.
Yeah, it's the city DPD can provide you with, we only get some of the projects, but a lot, there's more projects that we don't even get that have utilized it too. I know it's more costly than regular asphalt macadam, but
Okay. Well, I'll raise it to the,
but to me, in an area like this, it would be something that you would want to take at least a serious look at.
okay,
You know, since you're still in the design planning
Sure.
phase, so.
sure.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Lovely?
To the comment that was just brought up before, and thinking about what you were saying earlier on, right now, you have run-on going from Swan Street on into the development. It's not hitting the catch basin.
That's correct, sir.
So one of the improvements with the diversion up in that northeast, well, I should say, upper right-hand corner, I don't have the,
You're right, northeast.
yeah, that northeast corner is the water would, instead of currently running onto the property, I guess, and into the wetland, it would run into that catch basin. So without having the calculation, I guess qualitatively one could surmise that you would potentially increase storage within the wetland because you wouldn't be having as much run-on to the property.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
therefore, and if the wetland is indeed continuous on both sides of the cul-de-sac here, you would have a net increase in storage. So while I don't have the calculations, you'd need an engineer to do that. I think qualitatively, one could surmise that that improvement alone should reduce, to some extent, of the flooding issue there. And to the commissioner, to the chairman's point, I think I would agree that if we could put in some sort of pervious pavement, that would only improve the situation that much more. So something, I guess, to in part respond to the comment from the gentleman who just spoke, and then also to kind of amplify what the chair was saying, I think those would be two good things in combination
Yeah.
to consider.
I did forget to mention that this fix will definitely have less runoff going to this point. Because right, like I said, now a lot of the water from, I think almost from, is it Boston Road? I think that most of that runoff comes all the way down Swan Street and cuts right across like this. So to your point, you're absolutely right. It would be less runoff at this point by fixing this.
I have a question.
Excuse me, I would agree with the chair, though, to the extent to take a second look at pervious
Absolutely
pavement.
will.
I would consider doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or concerns?
Can I ask one question? Where does that catch basin go?
I don't know.
Okay, and then there's another catch basin here with a drain manhole. Where does that go?
That one goes under the road about here is a culvert. That pipe just outlets right next to the culvert.
Okay. When you revise the plan, could you maybe connect that and maybe
Sure.
figure out where this catch basin goes?
Sure.
Because if that catch basin does go to the wetland, then that kind of negates what we just talked about.
True.
Okay.
Yeah, can we have as part of your plan, can you have some discourse with the city engineer to find out, you know, where the Swan Street catch basin and where the Woodland Drive catch basin
Sure.
connect to?
Yes.
You have a sewer easement that runs through the property, and, you know, this may be a CSO issue too, so I'm sure the city engineer will want to pipe in on that. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Name is Ray Fournier. I live at Woodland Park. I'm president of the association. And thank you for going out, Louisa. Appreciate it. I do have just a question. You talked about a berm that the city would put up. Is that correct? That the city would do that?
I can't speak for the city, but I
Okay.
know my street had a flooding problem from the street up above.
So the
and
request came
that's-
to the
That
city.
solved it. Yeah,
The request went to the city
I requested that the city.
from that.
So-
Okay, so we would have to do that, follow that procedure. Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I had. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to offer their comments or concerns? Yes, sir.
I'm Ken Harkins. I live over at 110 Bigelow Street, which is behind the condos, and I know what the gentleman was talking about, the water coming from Boston Road down and going behind the cemetery and down behind those condos, because some of them been flooded out from that water. So I can see where he's saying we need to do something in that area. I have friends that live over there, and so I know that they got flooded out because they told me about it.
What's the topography of Swan Street from Boston Road? Obviously, it runs down.
Correct.
Does it go back up as it passes by the condominiums property?
No, I think it goes down all the way.
All right. Are there further catch basins down Swan Street?
I don't know offhand,
All right.
but we'll look into that.
All right, yeah, perhaps if you could identify, at least as the, at least if they, abut the frontage of your
Sure.
property, so.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right, without any further questions from the commission and without any further comments, what I'd like to do is entertain a motion to continue this till the next meeting at the request of the proponent. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to continue at the request of the proponent to the next meeting, which is May 22nd.
By Commissioner Lynch, second by Commissioner Varnum. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And folks, there won't be any further notice. I'm assuming most of you have received, either saw the notice in the Lowell Sun or received actual certified notice. There won't be any further notice. Okay, our next meeting is May 22nd, 2 Wednesdays from tonight, and this hearing will be coming back at that point in time. Okay, thank you for coming in. Moving on to the second item on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability, Swan Street Development Company, LLC, concerning project location at 61 Bigelow Street and 160.1 Swan Street, construction of a single-family residential development at 61 Bigelow Street and 160.1 Swan Street.
Good evening. My name's Maureen Hanley. I'm with Norris Environmental Services here on behalf of my client, Mr. Mainville. We filed a request for determination of applicability mainly for this property. We originally had looked at this property, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, and we had flagged an area as wetland on the southerly corner of the plan, if you can see, kind of near that A1 test pit that's shown on the plan. There's a low spot in that area. So when we originally had looked at it 7 or 8 years ago, we had flagged that area as wetland. And since then, the design process had begun, taking in consideration of the wetland. However, we went back out probably 2 months ago to take another look at this area again to check the wetland flaggings. And the area is not a wetland. What we have is, vegetation-wise, it's mixed vegetation. We have some red maple and some glossy buckthorn in that area. That's indicative of a wetland. We also have some white pine in that area, some black cherry. That's an upland species in that area. In addition to that, we do have some skunk cabbage as well. However, when we augured down to take a look at the soils, what we discovered is there's an E horizon. So the soil profile, you have different horizons. So you have an O layer, that's the leaf and the pine needles on top, and then you have an A horizon, that's your topsoil. That's usually about 9 inches thick or so. On this site, it's a little bit thicker. That was our thought behind why we have some of the wetland vegetation in that. Below the A, we have an E horizon, and this is an ashy color type horizon. And what's happening in the soils is you're having an elevation process where the aluminum, the iron, and the organic material is leaching out. And that's caused by the rainwater. So it leaves this ashy layer. And below that, you would have the B horizon. So when you go out and you flag wetlands and you're doing augering, you'll always look for the subsoil. We misinterpreted that E horizon as the subsoil, and we thought, this is a wetland. So basically, I'm here tonight to approach this position with the commission, because obviously it was originally flagged as a wetland. We do not believe that it is a wetland, and we'd like to resolve this matter and move forward with the project.
All right. Now, a wetland can be identified by either the soils or the vegetation. It's not an and thing, it's an or thing. The previous identification of it, and I'm assuming that it was Mr. Erickson and Norse Environmental that identified it as a wetland?
Correct.
Okay, and now we have it's not a wetland. What I would propose at this juncture, unless, and at least as far as I'm concerned, would be a peer review of the site, so we can get an idea from the commission's perspective as to, an independent voice, whether or not it is a wetland or there is a wetland on the site.
We're
or
on
not.
board for a peer review.
Yeah,
That's not a problem.
but what I'll do is I'll start with you, Commissioner Lovely.
Well, maybe it's by coincidence, but looking at your map and looking at the locus identification, I noticed that Woodlawn Street is on in, and I believe that's the cul-de-sac we were talking about beforehand.
Yeah, it's in the same neighborhood.
So,
There is,
not beyond a stretch that it's the same wetland, right? I mean,
I'm not sure where that gentleman was talking about, but there is a wetland and a stream channel further away
right.
from this property.
Well, I guess,
Greater than 100 feet from this property.
and I guess just with that observation, I think it kind of further substantiates the chair's point that we probably need a visit out there to confirm one way or another.
If I just may request that the peer reviewer be a soil scientist as well as a wetland scientist, just so that they're familiar with the soils.
Well, typically, a wetland scientist would be familiar with both, so we've utilized peer review before, and we have a list of scientists that are acceptable, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, would be Commissioner Varner?
I was on this site today as well. It's a very disturbed site. There's been some recent earth moving. At some point, it seems to have been a dump site or get rid of things you don't know what to do with type of a site, old cars, all kinds of stuff out there. In the back corner, and I'm not sure where the lot lines are, there was a large circular area of skunk cabbage, and the soil there was very black and still quite damp, even though it's been several weeks since it's rained, I think. I know a couple of months ago we did have a proposal in here from Transgas, who does have a wetland area on their property, and I'm not sure whether this area of skunk cabbage would connect with the area that runs through Transgas or not. And like I say, I don't know where the property lines are, whether some of the skunk cabbage was actually on Transgas's property or not. So I think having someone else look at it, perhaps we could mark, before they go out, mark where the property line is, or that might be helpful.
Okay.
I'm not sure where these, I don't know if the test pits were marked out there. I did see a couple of stakes with orange tags on them. I don't know whether that was the location of the test pit or not.
Yes.
But certainly a test pit at the lowest elevation would probably be the place to put it if it hasn't been done there already.
We did do a number of test pits, and that's what you saw.
Well, I
right
think
there.
you'd have to do one in the course of looking at the soils anyway, so. I'd be interested in where the water table is on this property in the rear portion. The front portion looked perfectly dry to me,
Right.
and it would only be the rear portion at the west part of the turnaround there that's shown on the plans. That would be a feature. There's one area that's low, but it was apparently used as a gravel pit, and a lot of stuff's been taken out of it. It's a very disturbed site. And I certainly wouldn't want to do anything to push water onto somebody else's property should this area that's low and thriving with wetland vegetation actually be a wetland. So I think having a second opinion is a good idea.
Commissioner Lynch?
I definitely think a peer review would be a good idea, just where we have information from 7 years ago that potentially indicated that it was a wetland, and now we have information that says it might not be. So I think just getting some clarification on that would definitely be the best way to go for this one.
Commissioner Beedren?
You said the E layer was the ashy layer,
The E horizon, right.
and that was about 9 inches, or the A was?
Typically, the A layer is about 9 inches. On this site, it's a little bit thicker. It's around 14 or so.
And what were you finding in that layer?
Just a very dark topsoil, no evidence of like redoxymorphic features, no evidence of water or anything of that nature. But directly below that is the E layer, and it's an ashy layer. And typically, when you delineate wetlands by soils, you look at the color of the soils. And if it's an ashy, white, gray soil, that's indicative of a hydric soil. So, but below that is a very bright orange color. So this is why we believe that it's not a wetland.
But you were like 2 feet down when you were seeing that ashy soil.
I
feel like you're right there in that threshold.
we were probably around 20 inches, 18 to 20 inches around that area.
Okay, and you did say that you did see some sort of nutrient that you thought might have been rainwater? Like, I feel like I necessarily usually call that groundwater of a wetland rising and falling when you're 2 feet down. Like you said, there was a few differences in colors in the soil.
Right, so typically if you have an upland soil, the subsoil is a bright orange-yellow color.
Yeah.
And that shows all the iron in the soil, and you're in an upland soil. When you're in a wetland-type soil, it's more of a gray color.
Yeah, I know this.
So I guess I'm not understanding your question. So we definitely had the E horizon, and then below that was a brighter horizon. So if we had a hydric soil, we wouldn't have had that bright horizon beneath the E horizon.
So the bright horizon was your B layer, you would consider?
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I think, I don't know, just the skunk cabbage and the red maple and all that, and this being a wetland before I do, unfortunately, think we need a peer review.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Commissioner Gordon?
I think it would be interesting to see as well the original study that led this to be marked as a wetland in the first place. I didn't see it included in here, but it'd be interesting to see, along with the peer review that comes later, to kind of compare the two that would lead two different conclusions to if it's a wetland or not.
Okay.
Do you have that?
Well, I can provide the plan showing where we originally marked the wetland
Originally
boundary.
flagged? Yeah.
If that will work, right?
I think who's ever peer reviewing that might be helpful for them.
Good point. Commissioner Parrish? All right. Do I have a motion for a peer review on this?
I move this project to be set up for a peer review as far as the wetland delineation in the rear of the property.
I'll second.
All right, and by way of discussion, do we want to limit that to a wetland scientist? I mean, I don't think we're concerned about floodplain or whatnot. We want to flag whether or not there exists a wetland on the site, so.
Right.
All right. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Commissioner Parrish?
Aye.
Commissioner Lovely?
Aye.
Commissioner Varnum? Chair is yes. Commissioner Lynch?
Aye.
Commissioner Biedron?
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon?
Aye.
All right. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Do I have a motion to continue to, are you going to be able to get this back before us for the 22nd?
Yes, in fact, we would love to resolve this as soon as possible because he is in front of planning board. So once we get the write-up from the city, we'll get you the check ASAP and we'll make the appointment and go out with the wetland scientist.
Just if anyone's here to speak on this, this is a public hearing, but what I'm going to suggest is you hold your thoughts until the next, because what's going to happen here is this is going to be independently reviewed by a wetland scientist that will be working for the commission and will be giving us their opinion as to whether or not there exists a wetland on the site or not. We're sort of in a situation now where, you know, is there a wetland here or isn't there a wetland here? So your comments perhaps would be more fruitful. None of us, unless we have a wetland scientist in the crowd, none of us here are wetland scientists. So it's a little bit of level of expertise, and it's a highly technical point that we're concerned with at this point in time. This isn't here for a notice of intent or for a project per se. There's a planned project, but that's not our issue tonight. Okay, our issue tonight is merely whether or not there's a wetland here or not. If there is a wetland, then the proponent most likely will have to refile a full notice of intent, and in which case it's a full public hearing, and at that point in time, your comments and concerns will be more than welcomed and entertained. But right now, this is just a point of procedure. It will likewise, like the prior hearing, be continued to the May 22nd thing. We won't take a final vote on this until we do hear from you. And let me just temper that with, if there's anyone here who wants to comment at some time but can't be here for the 22nd, then I guess I'll hear you now. But if you can be here for the 22nd, I would rather you speak at that point in time. Okay, I don't want to foreclose your ability to speak if you are here and can't be here at a later date. So if that's the case, if you are here and you can't make the next hearing date, and you want to offer your comments or concerns, kindly approach the podium and let us know. But otherwise, I'm just out of sake of time at this point in time, and we just really, we really don't know too much about the site. We have evidence that it is a wetland, and we have evidence that the proponent is proposing that it isn't a wetland, but that contradicts their prior opinion on the site. So that's it. Is there anything from the city at all on this?
The only thing I'd point out is it's less than 2 weeks to the May 22nd meeting. We can do our best to get a wetland scientist on board and schedule a site visit and give them the time to provide the analysis. So just bear in mind it may need to go to the following meeting.
Yeah, that's a good point. we have 14 days for the peer review, but that doesn't mean that it will be completed by then. It typically could take a little bit longer to provide that. But what we'll ask is Norse Environmental to cooperate. Obviously, they have to with the independent peer review, to provide their prior notes and whatnot. But the peer review does their own independent work on the site too. So, all right, okay. Thank you for coming in. Do I have a motion to continue to the May 22nd hearing date?
I make a motion to continue to the May 22nd hearing date.
By Commissioner Lynch, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lovell, Commissioner Parrish. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right.
Thank you.
Oh, good, yourself? So, based on all this, why don't we just hold off for our neighborhood meeting, because, until you know definitely what you're gonna do.
Don't want to waste your guys' time.
Yeah, no.
We'll let the peer review do its thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate you getting David as soon as you did yesterday morning.
Yeah.
Moving on to the third item on the agenda, request for determination of applicability, Charles Strickland. The project location is 45 Wellworth Street, and it's repair of a damaged foundation wall at 45 Wellworth Street within the wetland buffer zone and bordering vegetated wetland. And if you could kindly identify yourself for the record?
Sure. My name is Chuck Strickland, 45 Wellworth Street, the homeowner, proponent of this application. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. Mid-March, I went down my basement, saw some water running across the floor in this place. It normally doesn't run. Ended up seeing, if you look at some of these pictures in here, that my foundation wall had moved, causing a blockage of my perimeter drain, and the water ended up going across my floor. The portion of the wall is shown on that first page, highlighted in red. I guess I should point out Wellworth Street is off of Mammoth Road. I'm not sure if you know where that is. Know where Mammoth Road is. You know where Wellworth Street is. So if you're heading up from UMass towards Drake, we're the last road on the left. And my house is down the bottom of the hill on the right next to the swamp or pond, which goes around two sides of the property. If you can see some of the pictures there, we're looking to basically repair the block foundation wall. In order to do that, we have to excavate between the house and the pond. Wetland edge, we are roughly 40 feet, I'm guessing, from the edge of house to the edge of water. Mr. Clausen was kind enough to meet me on the site, take a look around. As you can see, I tried to, unfortunately, it was kind of dark when I took the pictures, but the land is flat, pretty much 2 feet of pitch from the house to the edge of the yard all around. What we'd like to do is basically put a row of silt fence between the house and the water's edge, roughly 15 feet off, to give some room to work. Dig a roughly 3 to 4 foot excavation off the outside of the foundation wall, stockpile the material closer to the road, further from the wetland, in order to get at the foundation so I could get the blocks pinned and keep my house from falling down. And my contractor was hoping to start last week, but obviously we knew he had to come in and at least file something with the proximity to the water. We were hoping, due to the situation, flat land, it's not a significant impact, or digging in a yard area, that we could get a negative determination. They're hoping again to start Saturday, but depending on the results of how we go here, we have to put them off. Obviously, we're not confirmed anything until I talk to you. So I think I touched on everything. Happy to answer any other questions if you have any.
You sound like you've done this before.
I'm a civil engineer in a prior life. Worked with Meiser and Brem for a few years. Started in Milford, Mass. with Garrier and Halnon. Not sure if you're familiar with them.
All right. You touched on all the bases. Is 15 feet going to be enough?
You know, I think it is. I don't think they're gonna need a big machine. They're only talking a 3-foot trench. You know, a backhoe, I think, is at most what they're gonna get in there. I don't think we're looking at an excavator. I think we're gonna need room. I think it'll be enough. You know, I'm happy to put it a little further off the house. I just wanted to try to be reasonable, leave enough room to work, but not be too tight. But we could go 20 feet. I mean, it's flat. I don't think we're gonna have any impact on the wetland edge. And if you'll allow 20 feet, then we'll put the row silt
I mean,
fence off the
my
house.
thought is if you're mainly flat out here and it's a relatively minor trench, is to put the silt fence a little bit further out, and that way if the backhoe or the excavator or the bobcat or whatever you're using, you know, backs into it, you're not having to, you know, to repair the silt fence and you know, which, you know, is a pain in the neck,
You're right.
basically.
I appreciate the consideration, and we, you know, if allowed, we could put it at there is, you know, at the edge of the grass. You can't, again, the picture's kind of dark because the sun was going down, but at the edge of the yard, there is a little bit of a shrub line. I could line the shrub line there, and that would, you know, protect anything from getting into any of the non-lawn vegetation.
I have a question.
All right, what I would suggest, I mean, to me, what's the, you said it's relatively flat. Is it flat pretty much, what do you have, is there a fence on your property line, or
Well,
is there any sort of demarcation there? Or?
sure, there is a fence actually around the entire lot. Some of it you can't see. It was there when I got there. Previous owner, Mr. Poitras, had put like a chicken wire fence around the edges where the water is, at the road, and to the right as you're looking at the house, there's a chain link fence. But there is a fence around the entire perimeter. The left side around where the water is, that is, the fence there is actually behind where I would say the shrub line is.
All right, so you have a shrub line back there too?
I mean, it's not a manicured shrub line, but it's where
All right.
the weeds grow.
I mean, to me, what I would suggest is, and wouldn't concern me all that much, would be to put your silt fence, you know, from that corner of the house along to the shrub line, and then extend it back over to the street. And that'll give your machines a little bit extra room to work in there, and will give yourself a little bit more breathing room. You know, and all other things being as you propose, you know, a narrow trench or whatever you need to get to repair your foundation. So, but to me, that seems fine. Commissioner Lovely? Commissioner Parrish?
I have this might be a sidebar type of question, but it's pretty significant damage. Is there any determination on the root cause?
No. We did put a claim into the insurance. They denied it. We didn't really give a determination. I mean, the pond is close to the foundation. The house is in the 50s, so it's roughly 60, 70 years old.
Yeah, with the damage, I mean, it seems to me, you know, not being, you know.
There is a lot of water. We do get, you know, the basement has a sump pump that runs very frequently, especially in the spring, less frequently in the summertime. But I just think it's, the guys that looked at the foundation, there were some holes drilled to let the water come in so it would get to the sump pump. They think that contributed to the water pressure, causing the wall to release. I generally know outside the building, so my civil engineering is not the foundation, so I'm not really sure. exactly why it caused that.
Being somewhat experienced, I perhaps can answer your question. It's about, what did you say, about 3 feet down that this pushed in at?
Right, probably 3-4 feet down.
And it happened when?
It was mid-March. It was shortly after not the big blizzard, but the second
Yeah, your ground
storm where the
your ground froze and you got an ice cube and it broke your foundation. That happens. It's happened to me a couple times. So that's what happens. You know, it's just you get a pocket of water, it freezes, and it just pushes it over because the ground's still frozen. Perhaps we had a funky spring.
Well, that particular storm snowed and then followed by a lot of rain and
Yeah.
melt and a lot of
Well,
water.
it's the ground was still somewhat frozen, but then you had all that snow melt, and then it was, 32 degrees, and it doesn't take much for that to refreeze. And at night, and it goes down 2 degrees or whatnot. You already have a frost line there, and it doesn't take much. So,
Thank you.
Commissioner Lovely, Commissioner Varnum.
I don't see any problem with the proposal as far as being wetland.
Commissioner Lynch, Commissioner Biedron, Commissioner Gordon. All right. I think we can easily issue a -3 determination on this. Just with one, I would suppose one condition that you notify our office in writing prior to, or just after you install a silt fence, but prior to doing any excavation. Please, give them a couple days so, if you're going to be doing this all on the same day, at least someone can go out there, check, make sure we're all good, and then we can, and then you can go forward.
I'll motion to issue a -3
All right.
determination.
By Commissioner Biedron, do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Gordon. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Woo-hoo. Oh, finally. We kind of missed this by a couple of months. All right, moving on to other business, election of office. The commission will elect the 2013 officers for chair and vice chair. Do we have any nominations for, why don't we do chair first?
I nominate Chris.
All right.
Second.
All right, by Commissioner Biedron, seconded by Commissioner Lynch.
You want us to nominate you, right?
I don't care. All in favor signify by saying aye. Commissioner Parrish.
Aye.
Commissioner Lovely.
Aye.
Commissioner Varnum. I'll abstain. Commissioner Lynch.
Aye.
Commissioner Biedron.
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon.
Aye.
All right. For vice chair,
I'll make a nomination for Commissioner Varnum to be vice chair.
Woohoo,
If she so
second.
chooses.
do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Commissioner Parrish.
Aye.
Commissioner Lovely.
Aye.
Commissioner Varnum. Chair is yes. Commissioner Lynch.
Aye.
Commissioner Biedron.
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous with one abstention.
Congratulations.
We have some here we go. We have, minutes. No, we have something. Other business, 5157 Shirley Ave, discussion of site stabilization measures associated with the enforcement order. I understand they've hydro-seeded already?
Yes, we have been to the site, and Swati has been to the site to confirm that it has been hydro-seeded. Yeah. So it's to the point where the Conservation Commission wanted the enforcement in terms of mitigation and maintaining the site. So at this point, we're just kind of waiting for DEP action on the superseding order itself.
Maybe you can fill us in on that.
Aaron's absolutely right. In addition to hydro seeding, the stumps have been removed from the site as well. And I had emailed Nancy White last week, and she told me we should be getting a decision within the week or so.
Did she indicate any which way that they were going?
They never do. No.
Well, sometimes they do. I mean, sometimes you can tell by their questions, you know, whether
Yeah.
they're trying to work out details or whether it's just going to be a denial, so.
Not that I could tell, but I'm hoping we'll get the decision within the next 2 weeks, certainly before the next meeting. So.
All right, so when you find that out, can you, and we should find that out anyway, because we're a party to that, so we should.
Do you want me to send her another email, or no?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think that's necessary, but.
Okay.
Yeah, we should receive notice as soon as a determination is made, because the way it was, the process was supposed to move forward was that once DEP made their, or issued their order, it was supposed to come back to the Lowell Conservation
Right.
Commission to review under the wetlands ordinance, and then issue an order separately.
All right, so the stumps have been removed, it's been hydro-seeded,
Correct.
okay, all right, and the holes were smoothed out?
Right.
Okay.
And once we get this rain that's coming, the grass should be growing fairly soon.
All right, any questions from the commission? Commissioner Parrish, Commissioner Lovely, Commissioner Varnum?
I was out there at one time when Swarthy was also there and the man was removing stumps, and we discussed that leaning tree, the leaning tree, and we both felt that that should have been taken down. I'm not sure at this point that it should be taken down until the hydro seed takes hold, perhaps, but it's a danger, and it's leaning over the neighbor, and well, it's just too bad that it wasn't taken out at the time, but I don't think that communication was sent properly to the right place. I'm a little sorry that the site was smooth to the extent that it seems that most of the vegetation that was growing out there was probably smoothed out or bulldozed up or something before the hydro seed went down, because probably at least half of the site was already vegetated. And now it seems to be all completely covered with hydro seed that we hope will come up. And it did look rather dry, so I'm hoping that we get a lot of rain, because otherwise it seems like it's going to need to be watered. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
Commissioner Lynch? Commissioner Biedron? Commissioner Gordon? All right. We don't need to. Oh, yeah, sure. This isn't a public hearing, but come on up. And just if, I know who you are, but just identify yourself for the record.
Linda Harvey, 48 Melrose Avenue. I'm in a butter to 5157 Shirley Avenue. And right now, it's still a dirt lot. There's no sign of any hydro seeding. It was done, but I think it's just dried up, basically. Hydro seeding, from my understanding, should sprout within 7 to 10 days, and it should be watered twice a day, and nothing's been done. So it looks the same as it did a couple weeks ago. There's been no stabilization of the site.
Is any attempt to water this? I know it would be very difficult to do so because you have no facilities on the site,
No,
but
there's
it has been incredibly dry.
Right, I believe the hydro seed went down on Thursday, this past Thursday, so about a week ago. And we should be getting the rain tonight, tomorrow, and I think Saturday into the weekend. So it should take, but unless a neighbor wanted to give us water, we just have no way to water it.
All right, well, let's hope for rain then and give it a little bit of a chance. So Yeah, again, without water, it's, it's gonna take a little longer. So I think everyone's lawns are suffering right now.
But do you get credit for hydro seeding if it doesn't take, if you don't maintain it?
Come on back up.
Mr. Mercier was expected to hydro seed, but if you don't maintain it properly and it doesn't take, the soil is not stabilized.
No, I understand that, but let's give it a little bit of time. It's gonna be a little longer because it has been so dry. But, it did rain a little bit today, not anything worth anything, but it's supposed to be wet through the weekend, so. Once they germinate, they're pretty hardy little critters, so they take fairly well. But, I've seen hydro seeding. It takes in some fairly harsh environments, along the sides of highways and stuff like that. So it might take a little bit longer than the regular homeowner who's out there watering, as you say, twice a day. So, it might take a couple of, a week extra or so. So, but give it a chance.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have, I have 2, but the agenda has 3. Meeting, minutes, I only had 2 in my package.
Yeah, we don't have the 27th.
Yeah, we don't.
You don't have the 27th. Okay, then there's just 2 to look at tonight then. There's one other thing on other business that came in through today that I thought we could talk about or get some direction on behind this out.
This isn't on the agenda, but it is other business. Did you get the email today from the city manager? All right, as we all know, it's been in the paper, the campsites along the Merrimack River, running from the University Ave Bridge all the way to the Hunts Falls Bridge. Now, I know they're all over there's campsites in various locations along the Concord and in other places and other brooks and streams in the city, but they're focused, there's 3 rather large ones, if you've happened to travel along the boulevard, that you can notice. And the city, in conjunction with the University of Mass at Lowell, the city itself, and the department, I guess DCAM, Department of Transportation, and Capital Asset Management, Commonwealth of Mass, are the 3 landowners. And the request from the city manager was our comments regarding site cleanup. My thoughts initially were that the letter that I have at least should perhaps proceed with an RDA, and the city or the landowners may, for going forward, because this is likely to be a reoccurring issue. I don't want to liken it to beaver dams, but beaver dams were an ongoing issue, and we issued an open, or a permanent notice of intent, enabling the city through its environmental officer to deal with beaver dams when they impacted and flooded out lands and caused property damage. It may be something, at least that I'm looking for, we may want to consider if the parties that are interested would want to file a notice of intent for future site maintenance and prevention of the campsites. There's a fine line here too. I mean, the Merrimack River is a navigable waterway, and because it's a navigable waterway, there has to be access to it. That predates the Wetlands Protection Act. It's part of the it's part of the common law. It's also I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Queen Anne's statute, and it's something that goes way back in the Commonwealth, that there is access to public waterways, and now, or navigable waterways. Now, that's neither here nor there. It's from my from what I viewed of these, of the campsites that are an issue here is the city wants to do some cleanup work, and I guess, Aaron, why don't you fill us in, precisely what that entails and.
Sure, I can provide a little bit of detail on that. So there's these 3 areas. In the last page of the handout are some identifiers of who are the property owners. As you noted earlier, Chairman, the area identified as number 3 is something that UMass Lowell will be taking care of the cleanup work. And if I understand correctly, they will be filing a notice of intent at some point because there is some additional work that they'll need to provide access to the site for some of the cleanup work proposed under this action. Item 2, or area 2, is the area that's owned by the city that we would be directly taking part in clearing the site. And then area 1 is the Mass DOT area that they'd be kind of tasked with clearing those areas. And so the primary elements of this cleaning is to remove the structures and ancillary structures and equipment that is on these properties, to remove the people living in these areas and put them into a more permanent housing environment. And so the clearing of this is going to mean clearing the structures and some clearing to get smaller equipment, something the size of a bobcat out there, to remove debris. So there is proposed some clearing for access, but then also going forward, there's a concern with fire and also just visibility of the area to prevent these kinds of campsites from popping up in the future, or at least being able to enforce or I should say deal with them more quickly. So there will be some clearing of shrubs and smaller trees is what has been proposed under 3-inch calipers, but none of it will be pulled out. It'll be cut above the stem, above the ground.
Is the clearing of the smaller caliper trees, or the 3-inch or less caliper trees, is that just in the immediate access ways in order to get equipment, or are they talking wholesale clearing in those areas 3, 2, and 1?
My understanding is it's just for access. The trees, the smaller caliper trees, it's just for access of equipment, that you're not going to see wholesale clearing of those. The clearing that they're talking about for visibility and to reduce fire hazard has to do with shrubs and low ground cover. Probably not even ground cover, in fact, because that's not really problematic unless there's a fire concern. It'll just be shrubs. And that could be detailed. If an RDA is what's required in this process, there could be some level of detailing of where access is going to take place, and if there's going to be any clearing of smaller caliber trees, maybe a replanting plan that is included that on a tree per tree basis.
Are there any questions of Aaron on behalf of the city? Commissioner Parrish?
No.
Commissioner Lovely? Commissioner Varnum?
I would like a little more detail about what type of clearing would be planned, because I think it's unnatural and probably not the best erosion control to completely remove the shrub layer, especially, right along a riverside. I can see the access is needed in order to remove debris, but I'd like a little more detail, and an RDA is probably a good idea.
Commissioner Lynch? Commissioner Biedron?
Is an RDA sufficient? You had mentioned a notice of intent. If UMass Lowell does want to do extra work, then obviously a notice of intent, but for the city, an RDA should be sufficient, right?
Well, I think the an RDA would be more in line with the current cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
These areas, at least the one on the UMass Lowell parcel, from what I can tell, is fairly set back from it's within the resource area, but it's fairly set back from the river itself.
Yeah.
I think the one on parcel number 2 is, the one on parcel number 1 is fairly close to the river. It's probably within several resource areas, but
It may be just out of the riverfront. I think it's just up the hill from the river walk that runs right under the bridge there.
right. But I guess on one is it's sort of on the bank itself, as opposed, even though the river walk separates it, whereas the other two are, they're on relatively flat land and away from the top of the bank. Whereas the one on one is, you could see I'm looking at a basketball here. You could see, you disturb that and that thing's just bouncing down into the river. So, or that blue water barrel or something like that. So,
Was the city manager looking for an answer tonight or just guidance?
Looking for guidance on
Okay.
what kind of process would be required to move forward with this.
Okay.
yeah, Commissioner Gordon?
No question.
Right. Yeah, I would say, that an RDA would be warranted. And, I could anticipate a -3, depending on the level of clearing and whatnot, but, yeah, if it was way overboard. Fire prevention, as far as I know, has never been an established reason to clear a wetland bank or area, so, or a resource area or a bank. And again, it'd be kind of, I'm 50, I don't recall a brush fire, and I defer to the Lowell Fire Department. Obviously they keep records on that, but I don't ever recall a brush fire along that stretch of the river, so, and then you've got camps here with open, you can smell the pit fires or whatever they're doing, on a daily basis, so, again, there's open fires out there now, and I don't recall any sort of brush fires, so it's whether or not fire hazard is thing, I'll defer to the fire department, they're the experts there, but I really don't think that that's a valid reason to remove all sorts of shrub and brush cover. You remove that and you create a dry area, that lets the sun in and whatnot. It's, you keep the canopy and it keeps it somewhat moist and shady, so. Commissioner Lovely?
Well, just thinking ahead, to Commissioner Varnum's point, I would think if we could just provide that additional detail in line with what the chair was saying, we could probably wrap this up with a -3 determination, but we probably would want to see that additional detail to get a sense of scale in terms of how many trees are we removing or shrubs, for access to do the work. But I run by that area quite a bit, and so I see it, and I think cleaning it up would be a good thing.
Do I have a motion on the, or anything further on that? No? Any other concerns on that?
No, that's fine, and I don't really need a vote on this. I can just take it
Yeah.
back to the manager's office and provide
But
some
it-
guidance on what's the process.
Okay.
I suspect if there is any urgency to moving forward, there would be an ability to do an emergency certification, and then we could come back and the city file an RDA if that is a problem. But I don't believe it was that urgent at this point. I think we could deal with it during the May 22nd meeting.
Aaron, just out of curiosity, the folks that are residing out there now, are they aware of this? Or-
Yes, there's been an outreach campaign, and a part of this process is to identify temporary living
Good.
Space, and either at the shelter or elsewhere, and working towards a longer term permanent housing option.
So no surprises, I mean.
No surprises. They've already been, the police and a number of different departments have already been out there to kind of discuss
Right.
what's happening and inform them of what their options are moving.
Right, great.
So, yeah, absolutely. No surprises not going in there and rousting people and out. There's going to be this is part of a longer, I think, of outreach campaign.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, if the Lowell Sun is accurate, and I know the city council took this up, but if the Lowell Sun has been accurate, there's been several stories, there's a story about it in tonight's paper also, so, all right. Do I have a motion with respect to the March 13th, 2013 minutes?
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Biedron, seconded by Commissioner
Second.
Lynch. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The April 10th, 2013 minutes.
Anyone had a chance to go through the 13 conditions on the second item? I mean, I haven't had a chance to. We spent a lot of time on that, and I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to look at them for accuracy.
Yeah, that's verbatim out of the,
What Swathi did
Yeah.
that night.
I did.
That's good enough for me.
All right, motion by Commissioner Lovely, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Biedron. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. And we do not, yes, we have one thing to sign.
Yeah, I need to go get that form, but for confirmation, the March 27th minutes, that's what
didn't
you still
receive them.
need?
We didn't
Okay.
get those.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll make sure you get that.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
By Commissioner Lovely, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Varnum. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. And good night.